Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 289 based on novel. So let's start. The sudden appearance of such a constant in the sky over Tainan Cloud Villa also alerted the high level of the Luo family. At present, there was a burst of breaking wind in the sky, and figures strolled up into the void. Then he settled over the sky array platform, looked up at the rapidly spreading dark clouds in the sky, and his face was dignified. 6 rank Dan Lei. It's hard to deal with. Luo Xiong stood proudly in the air, looked solemnly at the terrible thunder flashing like a dragon in the dark clouds, and his tone was quite dignified. On one side, Bai Hua and others were also present, feeling the terrible pressure spread from the thunder cloud. Even they felt a palpitation. End the battle. The little guy has just finished refining the pill. It must be a time of weakness at the moment. Let's give it to us, Dan Lei. The thick dark clouds in the sky almost covered half of Qianyun Villa. Seeing this, Luo Xiong couldn't help shouting with a dignified face. As soon as the words came out, the elders of Qianyun Villa in the sky just wanted to answer, but then, under the people, a fierce wind suddenly sounded. Then, a cold figure full of killing breath appeared in the sight of the people, and it was the North King. Puppet. Seeing the North King, Luo Xiong couldn't help raising his eyebrows and showing a look of surprise on his face. Naturally, he could see that the North King in front of him was the object of Xiao Yan. Just in the face of such Dan Lei, what role can a puppet play? He wanted to end the battle at once, but Xiao Yang's slightly weak voice suddenly came. Elder, Dan Lei, give it to me as a puppet. The expression on Luo Xiong's old face suddenly changed as soon as he said this. If it hadn't come from Xiao Yang's mouth, he might have been tempted to retort. Dan Lei is condensed by the power of heaven and earth. Its power is self-evident. How can such a puppet resist Dan Lei's power? Don't worry, Elder. He wouldn't have said such a thing if he wasn't fully confident. Besides, although Dan Lei is a little troublesome in our opinion, it's the best nourishment for the North King. At this moment, the white birch on one side also smiled and made a sound. Although the heavy Dan Lei on the 9 days made him feel quite depressed, it didn't matter if there was the North King on the other side. After hearing the latter's words and Xiao Yang's request, Luo Xiong ordered the elders to retreat. After that, he looked at the North King in front of him with suspicion. The latter is a body of King Kong, with a purple-gold body, a thunder pattern, and several scales in the middle of his eyebrows. At a glance, it is exactly 6, one more than when he was in the empty thunder pool. Now, the Northern King's combat power is also comparable to that of the 6-star Source Emperor. With all his strength, it is even more. It seems that the thunder power absorbed in the void thunder pool should also be absorbed by the Northern King, so that he can be promoted. Boom! High above the sky, the North King stood proudly with empty eyes looking at the rolling thunder clouds on the 9 days. His fists were clenched and his terrible strength twisted even the void. Even there were subtle cracks in the Tao. Seeing this scene, Luo Xiong and others couldn't help looking sideways. Just this, the North King seemed to be different from ordinary puppets. Thorn Lolo. Suddenly, among the rolling thunder clouds in the sky, an earth-shaking huge thunder suddenly rushed out of the dark cloud. The dazzling thunder made the dark world bright. Then, like a giant beast, it rushed towards the North King below. When Dan Lei came into the world, the North King showed no weakness. He stamped hard in the void. The space under his feet was immediately distorted and depressed. With a dull explosion, the North King's body also burst out and rushed into the sky. On the stone platform below, Xiao Yang quickly collected the casting soul pill. He didn't have time to pay attention to the Dan Lei and the North King who were about to touch in the sky. He quickly took 2 pills again. While the medicine was working, he focused his attention on the medicine tripod in front of him again. The soul casting pill has been successfully refined, and there is little soul source of the fire candle in the medicine tripod. I'm afraid it will disperse completely after only a moment. At that time, the falling heart inflammation will also break out. He must take the soul casting pill before this and start swallowing the different fire. Boom! High in the air, The eardrum-shocking crosstalk spread suddenly, and everyone's eyes were attracted. In the face of Dan Lei, Beiwang Ijia puppet was not afraid at all. The former's fierce bombardment not only did not cause any injury to Beiwang, but also made the thunder patterns on the surface of Beiwang's body more bright and his body more plump. This puppet has the effect of absorbing the power of thunder. No wonder Xiao Yan is so confident. The old face looked at the scene in front of him in surprise. Luo Xiong didn't come back until a long time later. He still couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. What kind of puppet could actually absorb the power of Dan Lei for his own use? In this way, the alchemists on the mainland don't have to be afraid of Dan Lei anymore. Luo Xiong doesn't understand why the Northern King can absorb Dan Lei so recklessly. In addition to the special refining method, it itself is a big exception. The puppet refined with the body of the dragon family is comparable to the human body. If it was changed into a regular puppet, it would have exploded into a pair of fragments under the bombardment of Dan Lei. In the sky, the North King never retreated in front of Dan Lei. No matter how powerful the lightning strike was, it fell on him like a duckweed in the water. He shouted to the people watching him in amazement. The shocking thunder collided with the towering body one after another. The two lights and shadows flashed rapidly, and the amazing energy ripples spread in the sky with sharp sonic booms. The explosion of energy rang through and lasted for a long time. On the stone platform below, Xiao Yang finally took the soul-casting pill in his hand. With a surge of medicine spreading among his limbs and bones, a warm breath also climbed up Xiao Yang's soul. At the moment when the medicine tripod cover was opened, Xiao Yang opened his mouth and a suction gushed out. At the same time, he swallowed the invisible fire that was just about to burst into his body. Bang! There was another roar in the sky, and a dull explosion sounded in Xiao Yang's body at the same time. The invisible fire swept away recklessly, as if to burn Xiao Yan's whole person, but then, the medicine of casting soul pill also worked at this. With the outbreak of Dan Lei on that day, more than 3 months have passed. During this period, Xiao Yang's body has been sitting in front of the medicine tripod with closed eyes, standing still like a stone carving, with suction pouring out from his body, constantly bringing the power of the surrounding heaven and earth into his body. I don't know whether it's because of casting soul pill, or because Xiao Yang accepted falling heart inflammation earlier. This time, the swallowing and refining is much smoother than before. Although the different fire is strong, it seems to have an alternative affinity for Xiao Yang. This time, it's much easier in terms of refining speed and swallowing, which makes Xiao Yang no longer have to worry about his life. Of course, even so, Xiao Yang did not dare to indulge wantonly in the whole process. After all, it was a different fire, and its power could not be underestimated. Although everything went well, if he was too careless and lost his mind, he might bring irreparable results to himself. Fortunately, Xiao Yang was a cautious man. Even in the face of such a situation, he still kept his original heart. This also makes the whole process stable and calm. Luo Xiong and others can see Xiao Yang's state. Although they were surprised by Xiao Yang's refining fire at this time, since everything was safe, they naturally felt relieved. After knowing that Xiao Yang was in the state of breaking through the promotion, a large area of Tianjin platform was forcibly isolated. Except Birch and others, no one is allowed to get close easily. Since he is in the critical period of breakthrough, once Xiao Yang is disturbed by the outside world at this time, the loss is quite large, not to mention swallowing the strange fire. If the strange fire is out of control, it will be a great injury to Xiao Yang and Tianyun Villa. In this regard, although some ordinary villa children also have a curious attitude, under the close monitoring of the elders, they have to go back angrily and look at the center of the Tianjin platform. The vague figure in black robes also shows a look of awe on many people's faces at this age. Compared with some young people in the villa, however, the former has reached the same level as some elders in the villa. At the thought of this, the awe in the eyes of the children of the villa has become more intense. Xiao Yang's achievements are worthy of their respect. Under the gaze of countless eyes, Xiao Yang on the stone platform devoted himself to the refining of different fire in the body, as if he had completely lost his perception of the outside world. With the crazy refining of different fire in the body, the energy of heaven and earth was also moved by it. Outside, Luo Xiong and others were surprised when they saw this scene. Under their perception, they were sensitive to find that at the moment, Xiao Yang's breath is rapidly becoming stronger with the continuous convergence of the energy of heaven and earth, so that it seems to have reached the peak of the Yuan Emperor. Even if it is only one step away from the Yuan sect. Under the blue sky, there were no clouds and a clear sky. The white birch stands in the air, dressed in white and plain. When a breeze blows, the sleeves and robes are stirred and rise with the wind, which makes many people in the villa pay attention to it, especially when some girls see the latter's elegant appearance. Ignoring the disordered sight, the white birch stared straight at the stone platform below, with a slight frown and a little worried look. Because of the isolation of the array cover, even he couldn't see the situation inside, but he could feel that Xiao Yang was frantically absorbing the energy of heaven and earth around him. Although this was not a bad thing, it was related to different fire after all, and he didn't dare to put his heart down at will. Looking back on the last time, Xiao Yang went to look for the fire of Honglian industry for 3 years. However, this time, in just 3 months, Xiao Yang has reached such a point, which inevitably makes him worried. If only Master Longlin were still there. He sighed helplessly, because Dragon Scale and Xiaojin were called back by the dragon family 2 months ago. At this time, it is impossible to explore Xiao Yang with the help of the cultivation of Dragon Scale Yuan Zun. With a wry smile, the birch slowly turned and wanted to leave. At the moment of turning, there was a terrible energy riot on the stone platform. At the moment of energy fluctuation, the white birch suddenly turned around and his face changed sharply. At the same time, his eyes suddenly turned and looked worried at the stone platform. The source gas in his body had been running up. Once the situation was wrong, he would immediately rush forward to save people. It's over. Then Luo Cheng and others hurried to the scene. As soon as the voice of their words fell, Bai Hua solemnly shook his head and said, "No, it's just the beginning." Bang! At the moment when the voice fell, a figure slowly got up on the stone platform below, and the fierce energy fluctuations spread around Xiao Yang's body like a storm, distorting the void around him. Even the stone platform under his feet was trembling, and the invisible and tangible purple flame were crazy around him. The energy of heaven and earth is also a riot for it. At the same time, the breath from Xiao Yang's body is also rising rapidly. Buzz! Suddenly, a terrible momentum suddenly swept through, and the faces of many villa elders present changed instantly. At the moment, Xiao Yang's cultivation seems to have stepped into Yuan zone. In 3 months, from the 5-star Source Emperor, he broke the Source sect in one fell swoop, which is appalling. However, this is not over yet. Although the cultivation has made a breakthrough, the breath in Xiao Yang's body is still rising rapidly. Looking at this, there is no stop at all. This momentum goes straight to the Erxing Yuanzong. Such a scene has shocked most people. It is already appalling to step into Yuanzong from the 5-star Yuan Huang in March. If we break through to the 2-star Yuanzong at the moment, wouldn't it be unique? Under the attention of everyone, Xiao Yang's breath rose sharply. In just a few minutes, he had reached the late stage of Yixing Yuanzong and even the peak. Until this time, the rapidly rising breath in his body gradually slowed down. Take it. But at this time, Xiao Yang suddenly looked up, his arms shook, his hands and fingers opened, and the suction in his palms suddenly surged out, collecting all the 2 different fires around him into his body and integrating them perfectly. While the 2 different fires were completely integrated, the huge energy generated during the process also made Xiao Yang's cultivation improved again and even made a breakthrough. Yuanzong, 2 stars. On the sky array stage, the energy ripples swept away gradually, and Xiao Yang's figure in the middle of his body was slowly shown in front of everyone. He was black-robed and thin. His figure looked much more messy than a few months ago, but his breath was particularly vigorous. Who? The eyes that had been closed for several months slowly opened. At that moment, there was a bright fire in the depths of the dark eyes. Together with the emptiness in front of them, they were slightly distorted, and the breath in the body was also moved. However, it lasted only for a short moment, and it was quickly recovered from the body. After all, it's just a breakthrough, the breath is unstable, and everything still needs time to polish. At this time, if it is too displayed, I'm afraid it's not a good thing. When Xiao Yang looked up, He was surprised to see that many people had gathered around the array platform. In addition to the high level of Tianyun Mountain Villa, many of Luo's children also gathered around. Obviously, the sudden changes here really attracted the attention of many people. I'm afraid the strong momentum shown by Xiao Yang earlier was also recognized by these people. Bursts of noisy noise also sounded. Hiss. It seems that I have only felt that momentum in the elders of the villa. Yuanzong. How is this possible? He broke through the 5-star Source Emperor only 3 months ago. It's impossible to break through again in such a short time, and he also broke through the Source sect. But how do you explain that momentum? For a moment, the crowd surged up, and the voices of uproar and refutation rang out. The elders of the villa didn't bother to pay attention. They all focused their attention on Xiao Yang at the moment, and the color of surprise in their eyes was particularly prosperous. They also couldn't believe that Xiao Yang's cultivation could be greatly improved in just half a year. Compared with their old bones, Xiao Yang's performance, it's terrible. Xiao Yang didn't care about the uproar of the Luo family's children. He moved his body a little, shook his right hand at will, and felt the powerful energy in his body that was more than several times stronger than a few months ago. He couldn't help grinning. Now he has always crossed the Source Emperor and successfully advanced to the level of the Source sect. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Yang's eyelids were slightly low, and a certain sense of killing passed by. Immediately, he turned his head and looked at the southern sky. Beyond the distant line of sight, there was still a clear sky for thousands of miles. Although there was nothing, there was a clear and handsome cheek in Xiao Yang's eyes. Du Yi Zong. His eyes stared at the southern sky in a trance. Xiao Yang whispered low in his mouth. After a long time, he gradually recovered. In a twinkling of an eye, White Birch, Luo Xiong and others had come near. Sorry to worry everyone. Seeing Luo Xiong and others, Xiao Yang picked up his mood and hugged his fist with a little apology. He was aware of the layout outside the Tianjin platform when he broke through. However, the situation was special at that time, but he couldn't inform them. Hearing this, Luo Xiong and others smiled carelessly and waved their hands. Luo Jin stepped forward and looked at Xiao Yang up and down with a smile. He couldn't help sighing, shaking his head and laughing. You guy, it's really terrible. I thought my cultivation was better than you at the beginning, but now you've left me far behind. I just use external forces. Without these, how can my cultivation be improved so quickly? Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang shook his head and said modestly. Luo Jin and several high-ranking Luo family leaders present were non-committal about this. Although Xiao Yang's words were true, when it comes to cultivation resources, his Tianyun villa is not bad. As one of the top forces in the central region, its inside information is self-evident. Regardless of his talent, Luo Jin can have the strength of the Source King level at his age. Naturally, there is no lack of help from various villa cultivation resources, but Rao is so. He is much worse than Xiao Yang. There is no need to say more about how it is. After a brief talk and smile, Xiao Yang's next words also made several people present slightly take eyebrows. Leaving? Xiao Yang nodded and hugged. I'm really sorry to have caused you a lot of trouble in Tianyun Villa these days. Besides, I'm here for another purpose, and it's inconvenient to stay for a long time. Therefore, I hope you can understand that if you have time in the future, you will come back to the villa to visit me. Hehe, in that case, it's not easy for us to stay, but as long as you can come in the future, I will welcome Tianyun Villa. Luo Cheng smiled calmly. While his words fell, the other elders around him nodded heavily. Then Xiao Yang turned his eyes and hesitated. One more thing, little doctor. Let me take care of it. With me, no one will approach her. Before Xiao Yang's words fell, a slightly cold voice suddenly came. Xiao Yang turned to see that it was Li Bingrui. When the latter came forward, Luo Jin hurriedly accompanied him with a smile on his face, which made Luo Cheng and others smile bitterly. His young master was arrogant on weekdays. Now he was so docile and clever in front of Li Bingrui, just like a sticky little cat. Xiao Yang smiled at this, then looked back at Li Bingrui and said in surprise, "Are you going to stay?" Li Bingrui looked at Xiao Yang for a moment. Then he said, "I don't know how much trouble you will encounter when you leave this time. I don't want to bury myself. The little doctor is here. I believe you won't never come again, so it's not too late to kill you in the future. When saying this, Li Bingrui's beautiful eyes twinkled slightly. Then he frowned and looked at Luo Jin, who came close to him. He gave him a hard look and pushed the latter out. The Luo family immediately smiled bitterly and shook his head. Xiao Yang was slightly warm in his heart. There were some truth and some falsehood in this speech. Naturally, he could see that since she was here, he could rest assured. When does Xiao Yang get up? Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang smiled and turned his eyes to the sky in the northeast. The Xiao family is located there. I don't know why, now he suddenly has a hot and impatient mood in his heart. For the so-called Xiao family, there is Xiao Xian, who hasn't been seen for several years. He seems to have some expectations. Leave tomorrow. The next day. Outside Tianyun Villa, on a distant mountain in the northeast, Xiao Yang and his party, Luo Cheng, the master of Luo family, several elders, Luo Jin and others were present. That's it. It's such a long distance that Duozong won't work hard to send someone to follow. Luo Chengxiao looked at Xiao Yang and said with a sigh of relief. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang nodded and arched his hands at the people in front of him. Thank you for your escort. With your current strength, it will not be a problem if you want to leave here safely. We are just worried about the bastard Wu poison of Duozong. As long as he comes every time, the next journey must be much safer. Luo Cheng smiled and turned his palm. He took out an array plate from the ring and handed it to Xiao Yang. Take it. This is a 7-level array plate, which is also a little intention of our Tianyun Villa. If you encounter any danger, as long as you open it, you won't be able to save your life, but as long as it is under Yuan Zun, no one can easily break it, that is, Yuan Zun's strong. In general, be more careful and try not to provoke that kind of strong person. Halfway through the conversation, Luo Cheng suddenly had a meal, and then he said again. Xiao Yang naturally understood Luo Cheng's meaning. At present, he smiled and nodded, took the array plate in each other's hands and put it away. After that, he swept his eyes one by one from the people in front of him, and then took the 2 people beside him to respectfully salute. Then, he turned and walked towards the northeast. After that, Luo Jin looked at the back of the 3 people who had left, but his nose and hair were sour. Just about to open his mouth and say something, he was slapped on the forehead by Luo Ao on the side, laughing and scolding. You stinky boy, you are all in the middle region. It's not a matter of life and death. What are you doing so desolate? Seeing this, the rest of the audience couldn't help laughing, and almost at the same time, the little medical fairy lying quietly in the ice coffin in Tianyun Villa, whose cold jade hand covered by the long skirt suddenly bent slightly for a moment. In the secret room, in the invisible void, a trace of strange energy that can't be checked is slowly converging on this cold and delicate body that has lost its breath. I'm afraid Luo Xiong can't find anything here. In a twinkling of an eye, it has been more than a month since Xiao Yang and his party left Tianyun Villa. The size of the middle region is beyond their imagination. Although they have walked a long distance with the help of the transmission array in several cities, at this moment, the 3 of them are obviously a long distance from the Xiao family. The Xiao people are in the northeast of the central region. According to our current speed, we will be able to reach the Xiao city where the Xiao people are located in about another week. Bai Hua looked at the map in his hand, but there was some helplessness on the surface. Even this week, they had to use the transmission array twice to reach it. Rao was a little embarrassed because of his nature. In this regard, Xiao Yang had to smile bitterly and shake his head. As far as he knows, there are large transmission arrays everywhere in the middle region except the marginal area where the 4 major forces are located, which can easily transmit them to the city they want to go. But now the problem they have to face is that, according to the map, around their current location, there is no city with a large transmission array, but the nearest large transmission array is the main city of Ouyang family, Shengjin City. Ouyang family is one of the 3 major clans in the central region. Naturally, its power cannot be underestimated. In order to avoid some unnecessary troubles, they have to eliminate this choice. Therefore, they are afraid that they can only trek along the way for another week according to the existing plan. Of course, Xiao Yang and Bai Hua are still okay, but they are afraid that Liana will suffer along the way. Girl, it's really hard for you these days. When you get to the place, you must have a good rest first. After such a long journey, even the two of them can't bear it, let alone Liana, whose cultivation has not even reached the Source King. She gently rubbed the latter's exquisite head, and Liana nodded rather bitterly. Then she fell on the shoulder of the white birch, muttered her small mouth and looked lazy. They had to smile with pity. Even if they planned to take a break in the mountains below, then the three of them jumped down. However, Xiao Yang suddenly stopped when they moved. Frowning, he looked at a mountain forest not far away, and his eyes showed surprise. What's the matter? With the cultivation of white birch, we can clearly notice that many people are fighting in a mountain forest not far away, but this kind of thing will happen all the time on the mainland. Naturally, they don't need to pay attention to it, but since it can attract Xiao Yang to stop, I'm afraid it's not what it looks like. Without answering the question of white birch, Xiao Yang stared at the mountain forest not far away. The soul force spread out involuntarily, and the situation of the battle circle also came into his eyes. In the mountains and forests, a group of middle-aged people in black brocade clothes are surrounding several people in blue robes. Except for two middle-aged people, the others are the younger generation. Gaga, look where you're going. Among the people in black, a middle-aged man with sharp mouth and monkey cheeks was standing in the void, looking down at the embarrassed group of people at the moment, and smiled sadly. All the retreats were banned. The group could not retreat. Seeing the people in black in front of them, several young people in the crowd couldn't help but despair. I didn't expect that they would face such a situation this time. If you insist, the news has spread. As soon as the reinforcements arrive, these bastards, together with the families behind them, will pay a price. Among the several people, a young man with stable breath clenched his teeth and encouraged the people behind him. Only then did he return his eyes to the people in black in his sight, with a cold look on his face. Gaga, you're afraid you can't wait for that time. Strange laughter rang out again, and the breath in the black-robed human body began to spread out, enveloping the mountain forest, with a cold killing intention, calling many young girls in the war circle screaming unceasingly. Zhao Ming, if something happens to us, you Zhao family will pay for it. In the crowd, the young man who had just spoken shouted coldly again, but when the latter heard this, he immediately sneered and sneered. At this time, do you still want to use an excuse to delay time? Do it and leave none. As soon as the laughter fell, the rest of the people in black immediately shouted and released the vigorous source gas in their bodies. The breath of more than a dozen source kings and strong people melted together, which can be described as shocking. At the same time, the faces of the people in the encirclement changed. The two middle-aged people in the lead looked at each other, immediately nodded their heads together, and their hearts moved. The remaining source gas in their bodies gushed out without reservation. At the same time, their hands were quickly raised to their chest, and their hands were quickly sealed. The seals were connected. The power condensed in their palms. Under the rapid transformation of the printed knot in his hand, he quickly became strong. And, that is, the special seal decision condensed in the hands of the two people made Xiao Yang look at it, not for anything else, just because the seal decision was the ancient family secret law he had studied, Emperor Seal Decision. Is that Emperor's seal? In the void, Xiao Yang's face suddenly changed, and he couldn't help shouting in his mouth. The Imperial Seal is an ancient family secret method, and it comes from the fighting mainland. How can you see it here? Emperor Seal Decision? On one side, Bai Hua was stunned when she heard Xiao Yang's words. Then she came back and said in surprise, "Isn't that the fighting skill of the ancient family? How can it appear here? Is it wrong?" "You can't be wrong. The Imperial Seal they cast is exactly the same as the Imperial Seal I practiced, but in contrast, the Imperial Seal they practiced seems to be more special." In the end, Xiao Yang couldn't help but be a little surprised. The Imperial Seal is a secret method of fighting the spirit of the ancient people in the mainland, which is divided into 5 seals. However, in his perception at the moment, the two people who are exercising the Imperial Seal at the moment seem to have more seals in their hands. Emperor's Seal, Heaven and Earth's Seal. Between the mountains and forests, in the battle circle surrounded by a group of people in black robes, the two middle-aged people shouted together, pinched and pushed forward with both hands. At the same time, the surging energy contained in the palms quickly condensed into two huge source gas fingerprints in front of the two people, and bombarded Zhao Ming and others opposite. Emperor's seal. Seeing the huge energy handprint rushing in the face, Zhao Ming could not help showing a dignified color on his face. Naturally, the Zhao family is particularly clear about the name of the imperial seal. His two families have been fighting for so many years. I don't know how many strong people in the family fell under the imperial seal. I don't dare to underestimate it when I see it in person today. Do it together and solve them. When Zhao Ming ordered to drink, he immediately waved his arm. When his palm was clenched, a silver long gun glittering with thunder also fell into his hand. His heart moved, and the surging source gas immediately flowed into it. Then he stabbed it forward. At that time, the thunder and sound around everyone's ears continued, and thunder snakes rushed angrily towards the people surrounded in the middle. Sky thunder gun, thunder snake dance. At the next moment, the attack of a group of people in black fell from different directions. In a twinkling of an eye, the long gun in Zhao Ming's hand and the attack in the hands of several people around him collided with the two huge fingerprints facing him. As for the attack of others, naturally, they were resisted by the young generation behind the two middle-aged people. Bang! Then, a dull explosion suddenly sounded. While the energy swept through the mountains and forests, a group of people in black outside were also shaken back tens of feet. Looking at the two middle-aged people, their faces were pale under the sweep of the energy afterwave. They had experienced several battles, plus the violent consumption just now. I'm afraid there is little source gas left in the body. Even so, it can be seen that the handprint is strong enough to beat back the more than a dozen people in black with the power of two people. When the storm dispersed, a large area around the battle circle was razed to the ground by the storm. Countless towering ancient trees were cut off and even smashed into pieces. Even the earth was raised with a thick layer of sand, and a huge pit was formed where they stood. It's the secret skill of the ancient family. Its power is really extraordinary. It's only 7 seals. If you can display the 8th seal, the seals are interlinked. It's said that it's comparable to the fighting skill of the Holy Order. Looking at the huge pit under his feet, Zhao Mian was even more surprised. At the same time, he could not help throwing up some extraordinary colors. If he and the Zhao family could get the imperial seal, I believe the overall strength would be qualitatively improved. If I can cast the 8th seal, you can still stand here. A middle-aged man took a step forward with disdain on his face and hissed in a low tone. Gaga gaga, although I don't like to hear this, what you said is also good. I really can't resist the 8th seal of the Emperor's seal, but you won't have any possibility of promotion. Except for Naji, clean up the rest. Zhao Ming sneered. While the voice fell, more than a dozen people in black immediately answered, and then rushed forward again. In the twinkling of an eye, they had come to the young men and women. Seeing that the two middle-aged people's faces changed, they also turned quickly and wanted to rush towards the people in black. Gaga, if you want to save them, you'd better take care of yourself first. However, just at this time, Zhao Ming's body suddenly appeared in front of the two people like a ghost. When his hands turned over, the source gas burst in the palm of his hand, and at the same time, each palm bombarded the chest of the two middle-aged people. Pooh! In an instant, their blood poured out, and their bodies flew out uncontrollably. Then they fell heavily on the ground below. The source gas in their bodies dissipated completely, and their breath fell to the bottom of the valley. They were seriously injured. Gaga, let you see with your own eyes how your people died. Zhao Ming looked down at the two people whose bodies couldn't move. Without looking back, he listened to the dull collision sound behind him. The cold radiance of the corners of his mouth expanded more and more. At a certain moment, several figures fell to the ground. He was surprised to see that those bodies that fell to the ground were dressed in black. When they fell to the ground, they had lost their vitality. Look at this, afraid of being killed by a blow. What's going on? Zhao Ming's face suddenly changed. When he turned around, he suddenly saw a face close to it face to face. At present, the pupil in his eyes immediately contracted to the size of the tip of a needle. His body just retreated. A warm and cool palm fell quietly on his throat. Then he pinched it gently, and Zhao Ming's body was lifted up so easily and freely. My lord. Click. However, when Zhao Ming was ready to beg for mercy, Xiao Yan waved his wrist gently in front of him, and the latter's neck was directly broken, and the vitality covered in his eyes passed away like a tide. He threw away Zhao Ming's body at will. Xiao Yan turned around curiously and looked at the group of young people. Until now, the group of young people saw the appearance of the person who shot in front of them. Suddenly, the people were even more shocked. In terms of appearance alone, Xiao Yan in front of him seems to be no different from them, but he can kill more than a dozen strong people at the level of Yuan Wang in just a few breaths. As far as they know, there is only the son of Ouyang family. Who are you and why do you have the imperial seal on your hand? Xiao Yang's sudden question stunned all the young people present, and even failed to recover. According to common sense, usually these words should be asked by them. Cough. Sir, didn't you come here for the imperial seal of my ancient family? At this time, in the pit below, the two middle-aged people finally helped each other and climbed up again. Hearing Xiao Yang's words, they immediately showed a vigilant color. At this time, they were afraid that they had not met any so-called good people. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang picked up his eyebrows and couldn't help shouting. Ancient clan? This video will end here.